So who wasn't here yesterday? That's so cool. I'm so glad everyone came. So my name's Nate Powell Palm, and I am based out of the Gallatin Valley. So I farm north of Bozeman and quite a bit west of Bozeman in the Three Forks area, and primarily between Manhattan and Churchill, the big seed potato growing area. I started out, I don't come from farmers, so I'm a first generation farmer. And I started out with really enthusiastic parents who heard about this thing called 4-H, and they were saying, do you want to just try any of these projects? And so my siblings and I have 4 siblings, and we did everything from homing pigeons to beef cattle to steers to pigs to sheep. And when I did my steer project, I really found my niche. I just loved raising that steer, and I really loved the business side of it as well. And so I that was in 2001 when I was 9, did a steer project, and sort of ruminated on it for a few years, what I wanted to do next with cows. And so I heard about the junior ag loan program when I was, I think in 6th grade, when I was about 12, and it's for 12 to 18-year-olds. It's for folks who would normally not be able to approach a bank to get some operating money or for capital investments. And so with about $3,400, I was able to buy 3 bred cows and some fence panels to make some corrals and an old stock trailer. And that was my start. And so I got my first calving season done, sold the calves as weaners, and was, again, just enthralled with the process of how we can be doing work that is so rewarding, even as, a young person, so rewarding to be able to go out and essentially play with cows, feed cows, and get paid for it at the end of the day. But it wasn't exactly enough money that I could be reasonably saying, I'm going to be able to turn this into a career. So I had to really think about what could I do to make it so that I'm capturing more value from each of the animals that I raise and sell. And that's when I learned about organic and learned about the Montana Organic Producers Co-op. And so I was asking around. I had some mentors who my parents started buying some organic chicken feed for their 20 hens, and they also raised organic hay. And so through that connection, I was able to start just asking questions to an existing certified organic producer. What does it take to be organic? How do I go about getting certified? And ultimately having a hay source that I could start organic feed, sourcing organic feed for my cows. And through that connection, found the Montana Organic Producers Co-op, which is a 22-member regional marketing organization. And as they said at the bottom, it's just helping organic producers find that fair market price and do so cooperatively, realizing that when cow producers are ever pitted against each other, we're always going to lose. We don't have enough negotiating power. And so cooperatively, we're able to chase markets that don't really fit with small producers. They need semi-loads of cattle, which most of us are, between 30 and maybe 100 mother cows. And so filling a semi-load is kind of a tall order on a regular basis individually, but collectively, we're able to always fill semi-loads, taking 30 cows here, 5 cows here, and getting the same price for everyone in the co-op. And so we have a fairly regulated set of standards that we operate. Breeding-wise, we share a lot of bulls. We want to get consistent animals that are going to meet the cut criteria that Whole Foods has put out for us. But otherwise, we're independent operators who have the benefit of marketing together. So that was how I got started in organics. I wanted to sell organic cattle. I did do a lot of direct marketing in the beginning. We luckily have 2 small certified organic USDA plants. Sorry, 1 USDA, 1 state, but both certified organic plants in Montana that are fairly consistent, and they produce a good product. And so I started selling quarters and halves to members of my community, and a lot of my time went into that. It's a very time-intensive process. And so I was looking for more, how do I scale up without needing to essentially turn into a full-time marketing organization? And that was where this opportunity came in, to be selling animals by at least a trailer load, if not the semi-load. So as I was getting going, I was figuring out how, and this was from when I was doing direct marketing, how I could move from this to the semi-load, of not needing to be quite so close to my consumer that I could only move small amounts at a time. And so I was looking at how do I start to improve my land, scale up my cows, and produce better crops, or better forages rather. And so I had never thought about farming before 2012, really. I was gonna cut dryland hay, a little irrigated hay, had never planted a seed ultimately, and I was really just a cattle guy. But I was getting these certified organic, very old alfalfa fields that needed to be renovated. Something needed to be done to up the production. And so I stuck in a nurse crop of soft white spring wheat. And at that point, I've been doing a little bit of organic inspecting, and I've been traveling around the state auditing other organic farms. And I was kind of getting the sense that you just, at least in our area, you don't plant a crop before it's sold. You find something that someone wants to buy, and they're going to give you a pre-plant contract. And so when I wanted to plant that nurse crop to grow the alfalfa underneath, I was looking at something that someone wanted to buy, and soft white spring wheat was it. So I grew a small 20 acres of soft white spring wheat, combined that off with a custom combiner, had it mostly custom, rented equipment and borrowed equipment, and started in on that hayfield. But in doing so, found that I made more money off that little nurse crop of organic wheat than I was ever going to make off that alfalfa. And so I really looked, how do I start turning all of my fields into a rotation that I'm going to be moving a lot, producing quite a bit of grain in coordination with my alfalfa. And this is some of our cows. This is actually up on a custom pasture up in north central Montana with one of my fellow co-op members' land. And so right now, my two crops that I'm really focusing on right now are organic yellow peas and organic durum wheat. And those go into a pasta product for Annie's mac and cheese. This is one of our fields just north of Bozeman, right on the base of the mountains. It gets a little bit more rain, it's a little bit cooler. This was just about 40 bushels of peas per acre, planted about 200 pounds of seed per acre. I just do one quick disc before I plant each spring, and then otherwise that's it for tillage. If I get in, I have some fields that I'm now taking on that have compaction problems, so I'm doing a little bit more ripping on those, but I really try to limit the amount of diesel I have to buy in order to get across the land and get things planted. So this is right before harvest on the peas. I just really like this comparison because our peas left just a fantastic residue that I was able to then come in and graze, but also that I knew would protect my soil throughout the entire winter. And so this is just the pea residue. I grazed it a little bit, but otherwise we'll be, again, disking it and planting it this spring. We do continuous crop where I'm at. It is riskier. There is a ton of summer fallow and a ton of Kent fallow, but figured that if we have a bust with the peas, we're always able to terminate them and still get that nitrogen credit and think of the seed that we put in the ground more as a fertilizer input, but constantly trying to keep a living root in the ground. This is that same field the year before with the durum, and it was 2017, super hot. We were just getting pounded. I think everyone in the country had problems, but we had pretty poor yields, but it still this was one of the first crops out of this field. And this is the combine that I really appreciated. I don't know if he's here, the fellow who gave the talk on ag economics yesterday, but I've taken the approach that I'm really going to try to purchase equipment in cash and not take out operating notes or finance equipment. And that means I'm buying really, really old, really, really cheap equipment. This is a $3,000 combine that I bought that has just been a champ, but I do spend probably 40 hours a year mechanicking on it and trying to keep it going. But it also means that, I don't have to be worried about whether or not a drought year like this is going to sink me and put me under. We always plant with our spring wheat. We co-plant yellow sweet clover. Yellow sweet clover is a biannual, and so the first year it doesn't come up when the wheat is growing. It'll pop up the next year, and we terminate it in early June, usually before this stage. We like to do it before it's flowering too much because it gets pretty woody at that point. But it's kind of, I think, one of the coolest innovations that organic farmers have come up with, because it really is such a great nitrogen fixer. It's a great cow feed with graze. It's a little dangerous to hay because it has tannin issues that can be a blood thinner for cattle, but fantastic grazing. And it doesn't require an additional tillage event to stick it in the ground. You stick it in the ground with the wheat when you plant the wheat, the spring wheat that 1 year, and then you just wait until the following year after you've taken your wheat off. So this is my cheesing it up because I was just so happy that it was my first really clean field of durum, where I didn't have any problems with Canadian thistle. I didn't run into any bogweed issues. And that's about 5 years of farming this piece of ground. We got about 70 bushels an acre off of it. It was coming off of peas from last year. And it was kind of one of the, every year, this is my 5th year doing grain, and every year I'm not sure if this isn't going to be my last year doing grain, because I'm always so scared that something is going to go very wrong. And this was kind of a testament to these systems do work, and as long as we keep at them, they're resilient. A few folks, I mentioned this a couple of times talking yesterday, that there have been several studies out from the Organic Center, kind of compiling studies that show organic matter is being sequestered at a higher rate, carbon is being sequestered at a higher rate in organic systems than in conventional systems. And some folks were asking if I was just making that up, and I promise I'm not. There's several studies. This was one that I really thought, it was in the Advances in Agronomy, and the line that I was pulling out that really just sort of spoke to the practices that we're conducting are very impactful as organic farmers. And they're impactful, they're measurable, and ultimately they're sellable. That these practices are things that consumers want and they're willing to pay for. And through the price premiums, we're essentially selling ecological services under that USDA seal. Again, just sort of kind of touching back on that, this was from Fast Company this spring about my farm and Casey Bailey's farm, who's my friend up in Fort Benton. This is, it was an article talking about how Annie's is attempting to examine what is the measurable soil benefits to organic farming, and how do they help farmers facilitate those practices. So it's a little bit of a sensationalist headline, because we don't want to get too outside of hard science, but it is something that folks, that is part of the discussion, that this is, we're not only selling a healthy product, we're selling a product that's providing ecological services. This is the product that Casey Bailey down here up in Fort Benton grew. He grew the oats and the wheat for it, and the cool thing was the call out for his farm, and then my farm for the elbow pasta, mac and cheese. And I talked about this slide a little bit yesterday, so just briefly again, there is immense growth, and I just want to talk about this slide, kind of tacking it on to the marketing presentation we had yesterday. Organic consumers are hounding after our products. We just have to figure out how to get them going and how to get them into the hands. So where it's not really a point of we need to convince folks to buy organic at this point, it's how do we get enough acres and growing the types of crops that are being demanded. And again, just wanted to reiterate, we're not really hunting for consumers at this point. 82% of Americans all buy organic products. We're just trying to figure out how do we get the supply to meet the demand. So this is my motley crew. This is my farming partner. He's actually from Denver originally, and moved up to farm with me full time, and our employee. And this is, again, sort of bootstrapping it. We had, I don't own any land and I don't own any bins. And so I lease both, and we don't always get the best bins, so lots of times it's a lot of digging grain out of those bins in order to get it into semis. So no hopper bottoms in my life right now, but hopefully in the future. And this was something I wanted to talk about again. This is my nephew, and I think that the thing that gets me so excited about being an organic farmer is the idea that there's going to be enough revenue on farms to make it reasonable for future generations to think about making this their career. So this fella gets to farm with me a few hours every day, feed cows every day together, and is a farmer through and through. And it's really exciting to be able to think about it as a real future for other folks and young folks to be getting into farming. And that's It was through the, let me pull back. Advances in Agronomy Journal was the publication that it was published in. They were, I'd have to look it up for who the actual authors are associated with. Jessica Shade is with the Organic Center. She's a geneticist who is the director of the Organic Center.
Northeastern, some of the lead authors.
Northeastern, thank you very much. Northeastern University. Yes.
You put a number 2, the yield drag on peas grown on last year's stubble.
Mm-hmm. Great question, and I don't do fallow, so I wouldn't be able to say. Sorry. Oh yes. What is the yield? If I understood you right, what is yield drag when you on your wheat when you plant a field a crop of peas instead of fallowing it prior to that wheat yield? For me, I've hit some decent years for moisture, and so it's not necessarily representative of what a 10-year difference would be. I think where I'm looking at it is I always decide in June, is there enough water to get this crop to harvest, or should I just terminate it? And so that's been a big thing as I've been transitioning land. I've planted a lot of yellow peas as cover crop ultimately because we got too dry. It wasn't possible that they would make grain. Just looking for that nitrogen credit instead. Still beneficial, right? And so if you can kill it in June, then you're still going to get some fallow credit for the fact that you don't have a root sucking water out of the ground. Is how I've considered it. Yes.
How are you killing it?
Just for the disc right now. Yeah. So just one disc pass has been pretty much doing it. With yellow peas, they're much easier to kill off than say sweet clover. Sweet clover, you have to do maybe 2. I usually intensively graze the sweet clover and then hit it with a disc, and so I can get a little bit of monetary value out of it, but also really stress it out before I finally turn it. Yes.
What follows the clover?
So typically, if I can kill it in April, then I'm going to do something a summer annual like buckwheat, or I did sunflowers last year, and so something that is going to be more something that I can plant in June, if I can get rid of that living root. Yes.
As a young farmer that's doing all this great work and investing in this land, what are those challenges that you're facing looking at scaling up or looking at doing long term on rental properties?
Totally. So I am a tenant farmer exclusively. Oh, sorry. What are the challenges when you're on rented land with making these investments and improving soil? I have about 12 landlords for about 240 cropped acres. So I have to be a good people person. I have to deal with a lot of personalities that might be difficult to manage. But at the same time, I think of it as I usually am seeking out land that I know is eligible for organic certification right off the bat. I got my start renting 10-acre, 20-acre plots around the Gallatin Valley, just because no other grain farmer is really going to be wanting those. Lots of times the irrigation rights have been sold off, so they're only good for dryland farming. And if you're selling it for $4 a bushel, you're going to be, there's no way to really make it pay. And lots of the equipment is not really suited to deal in 10-acre plots. And so my little 4230 tractor and 7700 combine fits this niche really well of being able to zip around to small plots. The challenge really is land tenure, of how long can I stay on a piece of ground and what am I risking with this investment. And so I have really honest conversations with my landlords saying I need a 5-year lease. I'm going to have fairly low rental rates because I am taking on a lot of risk. It's all cash lease. And I think, I'm constantly hunting for more land. And so I'm constantly bringing more land into the conversation. I have a cool thing that's happening relatively is that because of the really rock bottom commodity prices in the conventional world, I have neighbors who have always made fun of me to my face for the last 10 years about my organic stuff, who are now approaching me saying, do you want to lease my farm? And are now saying, I can't make it work. If you can make it work, go for it. And I think that's really telling of that, it has longevity. And so those conversations are, I have one neighbor in Sheridan, Wyoming, I also have an irrigated field in just outside of Bighorn, Wyoming, that I raise grain on as well. And I'm actually going to be working is Caitlin Youngquist here? Hello! And we're going to be working on a SARE project together for growing some ancient grains on my plot just out of Bighorn. But but the conversation that I need and I try to have with these folks is I'm happy to help them get themselves certified organic. Lots of times there's enough of a learning curve that they sort of aren't that interested in doing the work themselves. But on the other side, it's that it does take time to get land that's being farmed conventionally productive in an organic system. And so I have that conversation where we might only have, half the cash lease that first or second year, because I'm putting so much into the seed to try to get it going and not getting the crop off of it. So having good landlord-tenant conversations is really key. And I just don't rent land that I don't think is going to work. Right.
Any more questions?
Yes.
I'm interested in that Montana organic producers a lot.
Mm-hmm.
What are anything that they would put in line? Is there such a thing?
Or Nebraska?
Yeah.
Good question. We do have members who are in Wyoming. And so I think our bylaws are pretty much any touching state to Montana is kind of how we do it. We can always change bylaws. And so I think we're always interested in new producers. There's a big organic producer, Bruce Betcher. I don't know if you know him. He was not in our co-op, but very much associated with the same supply chain that we were working in. So he had a big cow-calf finisher operation down there. And then one of my business partners out of Ogallala, and she has a organic finishing operation down there as well.
Who's that?
Audra Parker, Black Hills Organics. Black Hills Organics. Cool. All right. Well, thank you, everybody.